Good morning, everyone. My name is Tristan Klassen. I'm an associate director at Camp Qwanoes. I'm new to Camp Qwanoes. My family and I, we just moved here to Vancouver Island. Oh yeah, that's right, kids. Adios. I was supposed to let you guys go and I forgot. So thanks for watching our video. You guys can head off to children's church or kids' church, Sunday school. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the reminder, Tim. You knew I'd forget. Okay, so yeah, like I said, my name's Tristan, and I'm one of the associate directors at Camp Qwanoes, and my family and I, we just moved to Vancouver Island this spring, actually in May of 2019. There's a picture of my family up on the screen. We came here in May 2018 after a little bit of a journey. I'll give you a quick little background and maybe it'll connect with some of you, but our family, we had kind of come through a really particular difficult time in our family, and we decided we needed to just stop what we were doing and we needed to regroup. So what we did was we bought an old motorhome, you know, one of those motorhomes that have a bed on top of where the driver sits, and we bought it in Winnipeg. That's where we're from. We're just south of Winnipeg, and we decided we've never been out to Vancouver Island. Let's see if we can get this thing all the way over there. And we'd been to BC a few times. We'd been to the Rockies, and we love the mountains. So we got to the edge of the Rockies with our motorhome. We called her Molly, and she was doing okay. But then we were worried: is it going to make it all the way through? Is Molly going to make it through the Rocky Mountains all the way down to Vancouver and then onto the island? So we thought we'd give it a try. We ended up in 2017 in August at Westwood Lake here in Nanaimo. Never been to the island before. We thought, oh, it sounds like a nice lake. It's a great place to camp. We loved it. We had a few days at the lake, and we left, and then we said, as we were leaving back on the ferry from Duke Point, I think we went from Duke Point, we said, I wonder if we'll ever come back. And that was the start of God doing something in our family. The following year, we came to work at Camp Qwanoes for the summer. That was summer 2018. And I drove boats for the summer, which was really fun. My wife, she did the laundry for the whole camp, like all 200 staff. She did it for the whole summer, and lost and found kids leave all kinds of stuff at camp, so we've got to catalog it. And we just had a great summer serving with our own children. So my daughter Addie in the middle, she's 14 now. Tucker, the boy on the left, he's 12, almost 13. And Macklin, our youngest daughter, is 9. And so we got to serve together at camp for the summer. It was an exciting time. At the end of 2018, we left Camp Qwanoes and we headed back to Manitoba. And I remember telling my wife, Lucretia, I wonder if we'll ever be back. Well, what will we go back for? I don't know. Maybe we'll just come back to visit. And God was starting this journey in us already in 2017 of coming to Camp Qwanoes. See, the first time we got to Vancouver Island, we noticed something a little bit different than where we grew up in southern Manitoba. Where we grew up, there's a lot of Christians. There's a lot of churches. It's a pretty conservative area. When we got to Vancouver Island, we noticed it was a little bit different. There was a lot of spirituality, but a lot of it wasn't Christian. It almost seemed like a little bit dark. I don't know if any of you have had that feeling before, but we felt that when we came here, and we loved it because we thought these people need the light of Jesus. And God was stirring something in our hearts, and it was really exciting. So fast forward to now, we're here, we moved to Vancouver Island, we love it. I think it's so funny, I have to say that, if there's snow coming, like we just got to shut down the island. That is great. If we said that in our church back in Manitoba, like, okay, you know, there might be snow coming, like everybody would say, all right, we'll see you in April. Because that's kind of the reality of where we live. But man, we really love living here. If you grew up here, you probably don't realize how fortunate you are. This is one of the most beautiful places in our country, and I think it's just a blessing to be able to live here. So we're just, as a family, settling in, trying to figure out what island life is looking like, how to work at Camp Qwanoes, how to be part of a community, and we're really enjoying it. So we heard about this big thing in Ladysmith, Ladysmith Light Up. Has anybody been to that or heard of that? Yeah, I heard almost the entire island shows up there. So we decided, you know what, we'll check it out this year. It was at the end of November. and we'll go check out what happens when a whole bunch of people come to a small little town in the middle of Vancouver Island, and they have this big festival. It's like a big parade if you've never been to it. And we were standing there. I remember standing on the side of the road, waiting for the parade to start. And there was a couple delays. There's some medical things that were going on, but we were waiting. We were anticipating, and all of a sudden, there comes the fire truck, and there come the I think there were maybe bagpipers or all kinds of music going on, and the vehicles were all lit up, and there was music. It was really cool. It was really exciting. But that wasn't it. That wasn't like the climax of the Ladysmith light up. What happens after the end of the parade is everybody walks down to the far end of I don't know what that street is, First Street or something? Yeah. The main street in Ladysmith, yeah. You walk down to the end by Tim Hortons, and there's this ginormous Christmas tree. And they do this countdown, 3, 2, and everyone's anticipating. And all of a sudden, somebody turns the power on, and the tree lights up. And it's very exciting, and it looks really cool. And then they have fireworks, and it's really an exciting atmosphere to be in, isn't it? When there's light, or when there's a show, when something's happening, it's fun to be part of. On the opposite side of that, darkness is a little bit unsettling, isn't it? I don't know about you, but when I was a little bit younger, I had a healthy kind of fear. I don't want to call it a fear because I tell my kids I'm not scared of anything, but I just didn't really like the dark, let's say. And I remember one spring day, I came home. I just got my driver's license. I was 16 years old. I came home from hockey practice. I grew up playing hockey, as most boys do in southern Manitoba. And I drove my car and I parked it beside our house. And I carried out my hockey bag and I put it into the shed where it can dry out or whatever. And I came back and my car is gone. And I thought, oh my goodness, we lived in the country. It was a little bit I'll say a little bit eerie. It was dark, it was raining, there was thunder. And I thought, what happened? Somebody's on our yard, somebody stole my car. So I get on my phone, I call my dad, I said, Dad, you got to come home right away. Somebody's here, somebody's on the yard somewhere, they stole my car. We lived, maybe a couple minutes outside of the nearest town. So my dad starts driving home, he's like, well, don't worry, it'll be okay, just go inside. So my dad gets home, and my mom, and we're like, what happened? Well, all of a sudden he sees some evidence. He sees some tire tracks. And those tire tracks, if you make a straight line from my car down the grass into the creek, and that's where my car was parked. I forgot to pull the e-brake. I forgot to park it. It was a standard car, and that's where it was. So it was in the bottom of the river. So darkness is a little bit unsettling sometimes, and I find like the world that we're living in sometimes can feel a bit dark, can't it? You know, I was watching the news this week and what's going on in Iraq and Iran right now. It's a little bit unsettling. You know, you see this plane that gets shot out of the sky and you're like, what is going on? You see these disasters like the volcano in the Philippines or the wildfires in Australia. Like, man, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to be. Sometimes we even hear about things like gender confusion and kids, like the things that they're having to to battle against in their minds and in their culture, and what am I, and it's not, things aren't quite making sense all the time, and it seems a little bit dark. But you know what? There is a light that's shining, and that light is actually a very bright light, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about this morning. This summer at Camp Qwanoes, this last summer, I was sitting around the fireside. So we have the last day of camp, we have a campfire where if you've ever been to camp or if you've never been there, there's a bunch of benches. It's overlooking the Pacific Ocean. You can see Salt Spring Island. It's really beautiful. We have a fire in the middle. And this is my favorite night of the camp week. It's the very last night. The kids all get to come up, or whoever wants to, and they get to share what God's done in their lives that week. And it's really a touching time. So I record it sometimes on my phone because I like to listen to it later and hear what's going on in their lives. And so I'll read to you this girl. It was August 23rd. It was almost the end of summer camp for the season, but it was the last day of her camp. It was junior high 5. This girl was about 13 years old. I'm going to change her name, but here's what she said. Hi, I'm Leanne, and I'm from cabin 20. I've always been an emotional wreck, always doubting myself. This week, though, my counselor kind of showed me what God really thinks and that he doesn't care that I'm not perfect. I've heard that a lot from all the other years I've been here, but this year I've actually tried to accept it. And ever since, I felt like a weight has been taken off and I've forgiven people. And she starts crying that really needed to be forgiven. And I'm going to give it a try. And I thought about this girl, and I thought about some of the other kids that are coming to camp. And I thought, they're really struggling with some tough things. And Departure Bay Baptist, you guys have been a great support of Camp Qwanoes over the years. So cool that Steve showed everybody, or everybody stood up and we could see who was part of it. That really encourages me because you guys have had a really key impact on kids that have been coming to camp, not only from this church, but from the NIMO and from up and down the island in different ways. And sometimes we think of this phrase, I don't like being in the dark, or don't leave me in the dark. And we think of that, and that's true. We like to be in the light. We like to see what's going on. In the Bible, in the very first chapter of Genesis, God gives the very first command. We were talking about this at home the other day, and we're saying, do you guys know what the first command in the Bible is? And we were thinking, don't murder, don't steal. No, those aren't the first commands that God gives. The very first command in Genesis chapter 1, verse 3 up on the screen, God says, let there be light. And there was light, and that light was good. And he separated the light from the darkness. The very first thing that God wanted to speak into creation was light. Before that, it was dark and it was chaotic. The verses right before that said, and I was talking to my son Tucker. I said, Tucker, what do you think that looked like when God said, let there be light? And he said, well, it was probably just a boom, there was light. It wasn't like a gradual, slow, light. And I think that's probably true. When God said, let there be light, when he spoke something into creation, there was light. And that's really cool. And then God separated the light from the darkness. Later on in the New Testament, John picks up on this in chapter 1, verse 5, and he says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. When a light is shining, no matter how dark it is, the dark can't cover that light. And later on in John, Jesus stands up in John chapter 8, verse 12. He stands up and he says, I am the light of the world. He says, if you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, but you will have the light that leads to life. At camp, our goal is, our message is, we're there to love kids to life. And that comes from John chapter 10, verse 10, where Jesus says, I've come to give you life and life to the full. So I want to fast forward a little bit to when Jesus, you guys know the story of Jesus. If you've been in church for a while, you know his death and his resurrection and what happened in the early church, right? You know the stories of how the church went from just a small group of people to thousands and millions and billions of people around the world today. But it started with a small group. And I want to take a look at a text in Acts chapter 4, because this is kind of where I want to key in on this morning. But it's the story of Peter and John. And Peter and John were two disciples of Jesus. They were two followers of his that, when they were first called by Jesus to come follow me, they were a little rough around the edges. And then even at the end, when Jesus was crucified, they were hiding, they were timid, they were scared. But something happened. Something happened in their life when something became very real to them. There was something that awoke them, that all of a sudden this light that they had seen, they couldn't hide it anymore. They couldn't stop talking about it. So we'll pick it up in Acts chapter 4, verse 1. This is right at the beginning of the early church. When Peter and John were speaking to the people, they were confronted by the priests and the captain of the temple guard and some of the Sadducees, so some of the religious leaders. Verse 2, these leaders were very disturbed that Peter and John were teaching the people that through Jesus there is a resurrection of the dead. So they arrested them, and since it was already evening, they put them in jail until morning. But many of the people who heard their message believed in it. So the number of the believers now totaled 5,000 men, not counting women and children. We're seeing the beginning of something new. Verse 5. The next day, the council and all the rulers and the elders and the teachers of the religious law met in Jerusalem. They're trying to figure out now, what are they going to do with these two guys that are talking about Jesus who rose from the dead? Verse 6, Annas the high priest was there along with Caiaphas, John, Alexander, and the other relatives of the high priest. They brought in the two disciples, Peter and John, and demanded, by what power or in whose name have you done this? Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, rulers and elders of our people, are we being questioned today because we've done a good deed for a crippled man? The chapter before, they healed a man who was crippled. Do you want to know how he was healed, they ask? Verse 10, let me clearly state to you and all the people of Israel that he was healed by the powerful name of Jesus Christ the Nazarene, the man you crucified, whom God raised from the dead. For Jesus is the one referred to in the scriptures where it says, the stone that you builders rejected has now become this cornerstone. And then he delivers the punchline. Verse 12, there is salvation in no one else. God has given no other name under heaven by which we must be saved. And that's what we're trying to do at Camp Qwanoes. We're trying to teach kids and youth that there's salvation in no one else. You can look for satisfaction or for light in other places, but you won't find it. It's dark. The world that we're living in is dark, and we're trying to make what's true become real for these kids. Now, all of us have experienced, or we've heard something that's true, we know it's true, but until it becomes real, it's hard to know that it's true. Are you following with me? Sometimes when we know something's true, when we know the Bible is true, we've heard this since we were young, if we've been in church, the Bible's true, but until it becomes real, it's hard for us to know that it's true. And I think that's what happened with Peter and John. They knew it was true that Jesus rose from the dead, but then it became real when they seen him, and they got filled with the Holy Spirit. Kids that come to camp, maybe you've heard that the Bible is true, but until it becomes real to them, it's hard to know that it's true. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make what's true become real for kids. How do we do that? We do that in many ways. There's a story of Moses in Exodus chapter 33, where he's spending some time with God, and he's talking to him, and he says, God, your presence among us sets me and all the people apart from everyone else in the world. And isn't that true? When God's presence is with us, it sets us apart from everyone else in the world. What's true about God becomes real in us. Now we can tell the world what's true about God. Sometimes I wonder what kind of influence we have in the circles that God's put us in. Some of us have influence in our jobs or our workplaces or our families or maybe a community event or a sports team, or a hobby that we're involved in where other people are connecting with us. And I wonder if we're sharing the light that's living inside of us, if we're showing them the light of Jesus by the way that we're living. Now, maybe you guys were like our family, and you know God's doing something, but you're not quite sure how to get from point A to point B. Maybe you've wondered, what's next in your life, or maybe you've wondered, how are we going to live as children of the light? How do we go from point A to point B? And I sometimes think, what would our community or what would our church look like if we lived like we really believed what we were talking about? If we really believed what Jesus was saying in the scriptures, if we lived that way, what would we look like? Well, I think that it would have a major impact. And I've seen that at Camp Qwanoes since we've been involved there. I've seen that truth, when we make it real to the kids, becomes a bright light that can't be stopped. We see that at the fireside when kids share about how they've experienced Jesus that week at camp. And it's really cool because not only does it affect them, they go home and it affects their family or it affects their friends in school. And that's what we're trying to do. So some of you might have been to camp, and that's great. It's awesome to be involved in camp ministry, but there's other ways that we can shine the light of Jesus. So I brought some wood along, and I want to build a little bit of a fire here. I talked to Tim about this. He said it was okay. Okay, so one way that we can share the light of Jesus is maybe by inviting someone to church. Maybe you have a friend or a neighbor or relative. They've never been to church. You're a little bit scared about how to ask them, to come to church. Just go for it. Just say, hey, would you ever be interested in coming to church with me on a Sunday? All right. Another way that we could shine this light or share is maybe visiting someone in the hospital. Maybe you know somebody who's sick or somebody who's lonely or somebody who's by themselves in the hospital. You can go shine the light of Jesus and go visit with them. Maybe you want to go serve food in a food bank. We did this a couple weeks ago. Me and some of the interns from camp, we went down to Victoria and we served some food at a food bank, and we were sharing the love of Jesus by serving people. Okay, so maybe that's an opportunity for you. Some of you might be involved in a small group or a Bible study, and you might want to invite somebody to that. Say, maybe church, they're a little bit hesitant to come to church, but maybe they'd come to your home, and you can share the story of Jesus with them. Maybe you want to work in a youth center or a drop-in center here in Nanaimo. Maybe you want to come work at camp. Maybe you want to come show us or show children the light of Jesus. One more. Maybe you have family members or friends where you want to read the Bible to. We have nieces and nephews in our family that don't know who Jesus is. This Christmas, we read them some Bible stories, and that was really exciting. We were sharing the light of Jesus. So if we all start putting little pieces of light into this, we have an opportunity to light up the world around us. So this wood is kind of wet, so I thought, you know what? I better bring some gas, and then we can make a real fire. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I think if we do this together, we can actually really build up the light of Jesus in the community where we're in. So this is what we're trying to do at Camp Qwanoes. I want to show you guys one video, and it's going to talk a little bit about what the staff, what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish at Camp Qwanoes, and then we'll finish out the message shortly after that.
Hey, I'm a counselor this summer, and these are my cabin. I really love these guys.
I'm one of the boat drivers. It's so beautiful out here.
I am one of the food team leader, and we are getting lunch ready. Today we're gonna serve quesadillas.
I'm part of the band, and we're so excited to start Q-Town tonight. It's gonna be another huge adventure tonight.
We're a part of the events team called All Star United.
We just finished preparing the tent. I love seeing the smiles in the afternoon.
I'm on maintenance. We make everything clean about the bean.
Hey, I'm one of the leaders of Challenge Course. We're getting Jetstream ready because campers are gonna be here any second.
It doesn't matter where any of us serve.
We're all here for the same purpose, to love kids to life.
In our world, there's so much brokenness and hurt.
So many are looking for answers, for hope, for love, and many are looking in the wrong places.
And this is why I'm at camp.
Camp is such an ideal place for God's love to break through into a person's life.
Kids come out of the city and live in the midst of God's beautiful creation.
They get to experience incredible adventure and fun.
Kids are accepted for who they are from people who really care.
And they learn truths from God's word in a way that is natural and relevant for their life.
At camp, they don't just hear about God's love, they experience it for themselves.
All of us in a safe place where kids can be kids, free from the distractions of everyday life.
You should see what God does here. Every week, so many make life-changing decisions to follow Christ.
Love is at the heart of it all.
I love how God calls people from around the world to be a part of His mission to draw kids to Him. I'm from Dola, Zambia.
Durban, Northern Ireland.
Port Coquitlam, Canada.
Newcastle, Australia.
Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Bogota, Colombia.
Washington State, USA.
Curitiba, Brazil. Saskatoon, Canada.
Auckland, New Zealand.
I love the unity here. God has formed us into one team, and each one of us is a vital part.
And there is a spot for you. I'm loving being a part of this community as staff, being with so many others who are passionate about reaching kids and seeking after Christ.
I invite you to join us. Come for 1 week or the whole summer.
Make a difference in the life of children and youth and experience the power of Christ firsthand.
You'll be amazed at the way you see God work.
And one more thing. Your life might be changed as well.
Join us!
So we're inviting you, Departure Bay Baptist, to come join us at camp. Now, that's only one way of letting your light shine. I know you can let your light shine in other ways in your community too, but we would love to have you in some way, shape, or form involved in camp. Departure Bay Baptist, like I said, is one of 40 churches that is an owner of Camp Qwanoes. You guys are part of us. We're part of you. We're an extension of what you're doing here in Nanaimo. And we would love to share some of those opportunities with you. There's many ways that you can help, different ways that you can be involved in our camp. You can give financially to some families who aren't able to send their kids to camp. We have a campership fund where we match donations with churches. I'd love to talk with you about that. Or if you're interested in giving to some of our other much needed projects at camp, we'd love to talk a little bit more about that. This summer, by the way, we had the most campers we've ever had in a 9-week summer. We had 4,200 campers exactly. And this next year is exciting because we have 10 weeks. So we have an extra week to show the love of Jesus to these campers. Unfortunately, there was about 800 kids last year that didn't get to come to camp because we were too full. We didn't have enough space for them. We need to build a new kitchen and dining hall, and that's something that we're really working on. But we want to get these kids to camp. Now, there's other ways that you can get involved. You can be in a summer staff role. You don't have to be a young person or a young adult to be part of our staff team. We need camp grandparents. Grandparents are really important to what we're doing at camp. They get to hear the kids share the Bible verses. Sometimes if kids are having a tough time being away from home for the first time, they get to be with a grandparent for the weekend, and it's really a great opportunity. We also need nurses. If you know a nurse or if you are a nurse, I would love to chat with you because every week we need help with getting kids their medications. If you're interested in counseling, we need counselors for the summer. If you want to be a boat driver like I was, that's cool. You can come for 1 week, 2 weeks, you can come for the whole summer, whatever you like. Another thing we're really looking for this year is if you're able, we're trying to develop a group of people that come across to Qwanoes with us on the ferry to help register the campers from the mainland. About 60% of our campers come from the mainland, and it's a bit chaotic trying to get 250 kids on the ferry at once. If we have a little bit of extra supervision, it works out really well. If you're interested in that, please come talk to me. I'd love to share some opportunities with you. If you're 15 and up and you want to look at one of our leadership programs like Cabanza talked about, there's some great opportunities for you to get involved in camp. And not only that, it'll help grow your own faith. And then it'll teach you how to share it with others. There's some really cool things that are happening there. Or if you'd like to be part of our prayer team, we have a prayer team that prays over the camp for this summer. We would love to have you praying for us. Feel free to come talk to me or anybody in one of the red staff shirts. We'll be back at the booth at the end of the service. So I want you guys to remember that we're doing this together, this lighting up Nanaimo, lighting up Vancouver Island, lighting up the lower mainland. We need to do it together. We can't, one log isn't going to be bright enough. We need to build a big fire so that we can share the love of Jesus in many different ways. If you've never truly walked with God before, if you've always kind of been like, oh, I'm not sure, come to camp, come be part of what we're doing, and you'll get fired up. You'll get excited about the things that God is doing in the lives of children and young people. So I want to encourage you, Departure Bay Baptist, to help us make what's true about Jesus become real in the lives of children and youth. All right, let me pray for you. God, thank you so much for this church. Thank you for the people that you've brought here, and thank you for the work that you're doing here in Nanaimo. And God, we're so thankful for the relationship that we have with Departure Bay Baptist and Camp Qwanoes, and thank you for all the kids, the campers that they've sent here, the youth that have been part of the leadership programs, and the staff that have served, or for the people who've given financially or who've prayed for the camp. God, thank you so much that we get to do this together. We don't have to do it on our own. We're doing it as a family, and we get to shine your light to those around us. God, that's what we want to do this summer at camp. We want to light it up. We want to show the community, the people around us. We want to make what's true become real in their lives. So would you help us with that? And would you help each person here in this church this morning to be a light in the circle or in the area that you've given them? Thank you so much, Lord, for your word, and thank you for what you've taught us this morning. We give it back to you in Jesus' name. Amen.